Welcome. You're watching and listening to the Life Enthusiast online radio and TV network. I'm your co-host Scott Patton. Joining me as usual is Martin Patella, health coach at Life Enthusiast Co-op. Hey Martin, how are you doing today?
I love it, and I could be calling myself a health coach at Life Enthusiast and life coach at Health Enthusiast. I think we should go with that.
There you go. Awesome. So today we're going to be talking about mental health. And a lot of people are going to be saying, hey, it's all in the brain. They're just, screwed up or whatever. And we're going to say maybe, and maybe what you stick in your mouth and the toxic environment that you live in has something to do with it.
Oh, I don't want to go with that maybe. What I would like to talk about is how important nutrition is to the neurological functioning, to the balances in your body, and especially in your brain. The point that should be made right up front is that brain is the biggest consumer of energy and nutrients in your body. We'll get to that in the presentation. But that the main point that I want to emphasize is that nutrition is crucial, critical, important to mental health. And taking drugs for it is just playing at the edges, the core, the basic, the very core of the issue is, as you just said, what you put in your mouth.
Cool, awesome. And we're going to be sharing with you a couple of products that we think are absolutely amazing as we kind of go through this process. So, Martin, should I share the screen now?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do a presentation. We have a slideshow that would be best to illustrate the points we want to make. And there's a small delay, but here we go. The product that we want to talk about most of all is called Empower Plus Q96. It's introduced by a company called Q Sciences, and it used to be also known, or still to this day known, as True Hope. And I want to talk about True Hope for mental health next. And the point that we just went and illustrated was that nutritional deficiency is the underlying cause of mental, emotional, and physical imbalances, and therefore all manner of distress and disorder. Keep flipping through the slides, Scott.
Sure.
And of course, we could go right to the beginning that the cause of most of these imbalances is what we put in the mouth, and that the standard American diet is at the core of the issue. In fact, I want to illustrate why. I keep flipping. Next slide. And next slide. The point we want to make is that even though the United States is the leader in pharmaceutical drug consumption, it's only 35th in the quality of health and health care. Next. And I actually don't get to see the bottom of the slide, so there's something in there that we wanted to say, oh yeah, that in life expectancy, we're even worse off than in quality of health care. Next. The main reason for this we see as the agricultural practices. Take a close look at the graph. In 1912, when the data started, there were about 460 or 480 parts per million of nutrients in vegetables, and say like this might be carrot or lettuce or something like that. Look how it's dropped under the use of the industrial fertilizers, mainly the NPK, the phosphates, potassium, and nitrate. Next slide. This is an illustration of what a plant root system looks like when it's growing in a nutrient-rich soil. the one on the left is clearly the one with nutrient rich. And wouldn't you rather be eating plants grown in soils that support this kind of growth?
That's such a huge difference. And when I'm thinking of like the potted plants that I have in my home and that sort of stuff, I'm thinking on the right is the way most of them look, and on the left is obviously how they should be looking.
Exactly. Next. So just to support what we're saying here, Dr. Kavanaugh at Cornell University, he's defining that the only one major disease that we all suffer from in our process of aging or chronic health decline is malnutrition. He says that all other ailments and afflictions to which we fall heir are directly traceable to this major disease, and the disease is malnutrition. Next slide.
Martin, I think this is a really important point. And if you went to your doctor and you asked him, is malnutrition a disease?
It isn't.
What do you think?
It's not a disease. It's a cause of disease, right? I mean, if you are practicing...
No, he's saying that this is a disease. And what he's saying is everything else you have is a symptom of this disease.
Right.
And the disease, we're used to saying diseases are cured by rest, chicken noodle soup, or drugs, depending on who you're talking to. And the idea that this disease could be cured by eating fresh fruits and vegetables would be almost ridiculous, except that that's what got rid of scurvy.
Right. Yes, that was a great example.
So I think this is kind of interesting in that nobody talks about malnutrition in terms of being a disease. Why not? Well, because then you would have to deal with it.
I guess what you would be saying is that the doctor should be prescribing to you salad and highly mineralized vegetables instead of whatever else he or she suggests, pills. Yeah. Well, take a look at the next slide. Linus Pauling. Nearly all disease can be traced to nutritional deficiency. That's such a big point to make. And yet he's right. When you don't eat right, you create imbalances. The imbalances will lead to problems. Let's just run through the slides. There's an illustration of that point. You know, even now, some doctors, this probably was some kind of an aberration and a fluke that they let it out because they would normally not. But they're saying that everybody should be taking at least some multivitamin every day. That's, of course, they just don't take a serious look at the quality of the supplement. But anyway, let's just flip through these, okay? What we're looking at is, oh dear, your screen, because of the scale, broke up the words in a funny way. What we have is that nutritional deficiency leads to symptoms and behavior, and the symptoms and behavior will cause you stress and trauma, and the stress and trauma will exacerbate into digestive problems, and then the digestive problems lead to more nutritional deficiency. And so it's like a vicious circle where you go from one to the next, where if you start with the nutritional deficiency, you end up in symptoms, and the symptoms lead to stress, and the stress leads to trouble, and so on. Circle and circles. Yeah, just click through these. Where what we're seeing here is that there are statistics showing that back in the 1972, Health Canada saw only 6% of people with definable or diagnosable mental disorders. In '87, United States saw 11. In '99, U.S. Surgeon General saw 21%, and World Health Organization in 2001 declared that 25% had mood and mental disorders. So that's fourfold increase. And interestingly, the cost in healthcare, the number one drain on the national health budget, is now mood and mental disorders. And if you look at the numbers, we know that we have about, in the United States alone, according to CDC, we have 3.5 million people in acute distress, 30 million more in mild problems, and another 34 million with serious trouble, but not really recognizing it as mental illness. And so when you add it up, 68 million people out of 330 million, it's
a lot of people.
Well, yeah, and the headline we put up there is like, there probably isn't a single family that's not touched in some way with the mental illness issues. And I mean, this one is just so sad to me with current development. We have now 20% of American children defined as having some type of a mental disorder, ADHD or ADD being the most common one. To the next. And so these are the statistics. The CDC says that 20% of high school-aged youth have been diagnosed with ADHD. And the scary number is that over 6 million children in the United States take serotonin reuptake inhibitor type of drugs. These are the Prozac and Paxil and group of medication. And also that 23% of U.S. women in their 40s and 50s are taking antidepressants.
Wow.
And then still more support. European studies show that at least 40% of Europeans are in trouble. We're showing that over 50% of people have so much stress that they are having sleep issues. 33% of employees have chronic debilitating stress, meaning that they can't cope with the work. And the worst of it all, suicide, is now becoming the #1 cause of injury death for Americans. And the ugly note is that in 2012, more U.S. soldiers died by suicide than by enemy fire or combat. And if you really want to take a look at the impact of these drugs, go to your favorite search engine and look up 626 school shootings. There's a website, SSRI Stories, I think it's called, that lists all of the side effects, all of the horrific gun accidents, which essentially are cries for help by people who have lost all hope or have had their brain chemistry altered in such way that they have now suicide ideation and want to die a horrific death and take as many people with them as they can.
That's so sad.
Truly.
So what's the solution? What do we have to do to turn this downward spiral around?
Indeed. Let's take another slide. Let's dive in. So we have this solution in front of us, the product that we want to talk about. With it's called Empower Plus Q96. It has already 17 years of research, $25 million in various scientific studies that have been conducted and published. and it's all focusing on using micronutrient supplementation to support healthy brain function. Next one. We're looking at the story of True Hope. True Hope was, or still is, a Canadian company where the Empower Plus Q96 was developed. Back in the 90s, here's a picture of Tony Stephan's family. In 1994, Tony's wife, Debbie, was bipolar, and when the doctor adjusted her Prozac dosage or whatever, she lost it. She took her own life. 16 years earlier, her father did the same. Also bipolar, took his life. And then the two older children, Autumn and Joseph, were also diagnosed as bipolar. So here's Tony Stephan left with 9 children, no wife, and 2 of his oldest kids with serious trouble. And he could just see the writing on the wall, and he was really desperate. Keep going. Click. The question then is, if you find yourself in that strait, what is a guy to do? Tony, actually, I listened to him share his personal story in great detail, and it was a journey with his son to a psychologist, where they asked for help, and the doctor told him, listen, I need to give you this dose of reality. There is no help. He's not going to get better, and there's a very high likelihood that he will end in suicide, just like his mother did. And this is not what Tony wanted to do, and so he was looking around and asking questions. And one day he talked to another person who was involved in formulating feed for hogs in agriculture. And he said that they were able to nutrate away the aggressive behavior that the hogs were exhibiting by changing their nutrient intake. And that's what led to their mixing of nutrients. And in January of '96, Tony developed an early mix that he started feeding his son Joseph. And lo and behold, Joseph got better. That's his quote. He was, I think he was a 17-year-old guy at that point. He was 200 pounds. He was violent. He was obsessed with guns, knives, weapons. He thought that the government was coming to get him. He was threatening to kill his family. It was just a horrendous situation to live with. And yet, there it was. And a few months later, Autumn, who was also very, very ill, and on all kinds of medications, like she was seriously medicated. Anyway, she completely was healed by the True Hope product that's now known as the Empower Plus Q96, and has been drug-free and has become a mother of 4, which there was no chance she was going to be a mother if she's going to stay doped on the drugs that she was on.
And the funny thing about her story is her dad could tell if she stopped taking the Empower Plus supplements.
Yeah.
And because she started to become more bipolar. So he'd get her back on it, and then she'd go back to normal. And it's just amazing.
She wrote a book, there's a picture of it, A Promise of Hope. It's an awesome book. I'll mention a link. It's going to be listed at the back of this presentation. The website is called brainhealth.me. There's a 15-minute recording of Autumn sharing her story. When I finished listening to it, I had tears running down my cheeks. That's just unbelievable. Anyway, next slide. So there. Also on that same site, we have a link to this 1-hour documentary that Discovery Channel did on this product. Next slide. It's that the Discovery went over the whole story, showing how the development of the product evolved and what it did and so on. The critical points are the ratios. It's a broad-spectrum micronutrient formula with 36 specific vitamins, minerals, and aminos that have been balanced carefully. Tony was explaining that 5 to 10% either way of the balance that they have, and it stopped working.
Oh, wow.
So it's not just, to any person it will look like, oh, this is just another multivitamin. But it isn't just another multivitamin. There are two important points: micronization, which makes it more absorbable, and nanochelation, which makes it ever more so absorbable, which means that these nutrients will be used and utilized, not passed through your body. That quote earlier about everybody taking a multivitamin every day, if you take the typical tablet that's compressed, that one lump tablet, it's not going to dissolve, and many people just pass them intact. And so going back to Linus Pauling, who we have quoted earlier, he says that, well, let's read it. The genes for mental illness are likely the genes that regulate his brain metabolism of essential nutrients. This is a critical point. Our brains keep clicking. Even though they represent only 2 or 3% of our body weight, they actually consume 20 to 50% of all metabolic demands. So as you go back, you can again see that any nutritional deficiency will reflect itself in brain function, which then the symptoms and behavior, which then leads to your stress and trauma, which then leads to digestive problems, and so on. Closed loop. And we have put the bottle of the Empower Plus at the center as a means of dealing with it. These are the main functions of Q96 in the brain: calming, coping, clarity, cognition. You'll think better, you'll have better recall, you have better memory, and you manage your emotional states with ease. What we have here is quotes, keep going, Scott, about how it was working. Could you skip back one? In 2003, several thousand Canadian customers were using Empower Plus, called True Hope in Canada. And Health Canada, which is the equivalent of FDA, went after them. They just ordered them to cease and desist, which caused tremendous problem for thousands of people who were depending on these products to be able to live a normal life. So people were smuggling this product. It was being made in the United States and shipped into Canada. People were smuggling it into the country. And a 3-year legal battle ensued. What you see there is a picture of Dr. James Lunny, a parliamentarian, I guess the equivalent of a senator, who stood for the company and helped defend it against the bureaucracy. Next slide. The upshot and outcome that in 2006, a really brave judge declared that thousands of individuals who have found relief from mental illness through the supplement without the negative side effects of conventional medications were relying on them to continue to sell and distribute their products and to maintain the program. Show the next slide. What we have here is, no, not that, previous. What we have here is that the judge called onto the Criminal Code Section 217, which is known as the Good Samaritan rule. And the Good Samaritan says that if you see another person in distress and do not act, you're criminally liable for your not helping. So the company, True Hope, was ordered to never stop making this and making this available for people. Next slide. What happened since is that there are dozens, well, over 20 studies that were published in respected medical journals in four countries, 15 universities. Over $25 million was expended by either governments or universities on studying these products. Next one. And here's the title of one of them: How Use of Micronutrients, specifically in the Empower Plus, attenuates, which means gets you off either cannabis or nicotine, and how this works. So people who are hooked on stuff, either cigarettes or dope, can get off it. Here is another one: childhood psychosis, how you can help children get better from their mental illness. The next one yet. This was a really interesting study. They took one child, one 11-year-old who had severe psychosis, OCD, anxiety, and they tracked his 5.5 years of treatment under the medical model with no success at all. And it was resolved in 1 month once he was put on the Empower Plus. And then he was followed for additional 4 years where he remained in full remission. So they tracked the last 6 months of his medical treatment. The money spent was $158,000. Then they put him on the Empower Plus, and the next 6 months cost $2,800, of which the product itself was only $350. The rest was the medical bills for the doctors insisting that he come to visit and talk about how well he's doing. There's a picture of a building of Canadian Centre for Behaviour Neuroscience where they studied rats. They intentionally injured the rats. This is what a brain looks like when you give it a lobotomy. You just cut off the front end of it. And here, those similar rats in the same, control group was not fed the decent nutrients, and the ones that were, the brain grew back. Can you imagine when you supplement with this that you actually get your brain cells growing back? I mean, I would be very happy to regrow some of the brain cells I killed in my unwise young days. And so here we have some magazines that published studies about the product. And you will also see a link to this show where Fox News talked about it, and where Dr. Popper, a psychopharmacologist, let this out about Empower Plus. Their work is already historically pivotal in changing the way that psychiatry will be practiced. Make no mistake, this is a historically significant piece of work. And here is the main doctor in Canada who led the study that led to the breakthrough. She was actually ordered by Health Canada to stop her work, and she refused. What a brave woman. Anyway, she said, any medication that had this effect would catch a lot of people's attention. I think we might end up redefining how we think of mental illness. And that will be a huge change. Of course, that's the researchers. The mainstream pharmaceutical industries are not wanting to have any of it. And yet, here's a doctor, psychiatrist, Dr. Miles Simmons. He says, we decided to try it, and it worked. I mean, duh. This is where you'll find the information, that the articles, the testimonials, the videos, brainhealth.me. And here are some quotes from clients that have used it that are talking about their stories. Just keep clicking through these, Scott. You know, getting off of medications, getting better sleep, getting off of stress, stopping the mental fog, feel right, and brain working properly. Here's an important service that we offer alongside with Empower Q96. We're partnered with the company called micronutrientsupport.com, and this is the Canadian company that supports also True Hope. And they have fully qualified health coach service with thousands and thousands of health histories on record. These people are highly trained and have incredibly rich amount of details, much more than any psychiatrist will have in their office. And what they offer is a service that helps you get off of pharmaceutical medications. That is the main point, is that when you're on psychotropic or psychoactive medications, you need to find some way to get off it. They have lots of data, high success rate, and all they charge is $35 a month for as long as you want to use the service. The Empower Plus can be bought. We sell it for $59. If you want to buy it directly on a monthly dropship program, you're a preferred customer, you subscribe, you can cancel anytime. You'll be paying $49 plus shipping. This company is a network marketing company, so if you want to share it with others and build your own business, you pay $49 registration. And on the next slide, with that registration, you can qualify now for buying all of the other products. This is the powdered version of it in banana and berry flavor. They also have additional products, essentials for men and women. These are herbal extract. Qbiotics is a probiotic. Qvitalize is a amino acid energizing. Q10, coenzyme Q10. Those are products that are typical for other companies. I mean, we offer these as well. And then finally, the instant sprays with vitamin B12, with energy boost, with sleep, and vitamin D. Again, the most important vitamins that people are deficient in, so you can give yourself a boost. And wouldn't you know it, it's also available in a formulation for pets. Chewable, easy to digest, that are good for your dogs, cats, and other. And finally, let's review. There is a 30-day money-back guarantee. So if you decide that you're not happy with the results, we will take the empty bottle back and give you your money back. Learn more at brainhealth.me and call us at Life Enthusiast at 1-866-543-3388. The website itself is www.life-enthusiasts.com. Thank you.